Okay, so Akwatu, thank you so much for your willingness to give this brief interview. Vaccinate for the Culture is a Toronto-based grassroots community collaboration with the Jamaican Canadian Association that is promoting the importance of getting vaccinated for the COVID-19 vaccination for the Black community. So why is this important for the Black community to be vaccinated?
The reason Black people need to get vaccinated is simple: to prevent severe illness, hospitalization, and death, which are correlates of the chronic conditions that we have inherited from slavery, which make us susceptible to COVID in a way that our non-Black peers are not.
So the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed health inequities in Canada. And so, how has racism caused the virus to disproportionately affect the Black community?
So, the Black people, because of social determinants of health, tend to have low paying jobs, tend to live in housing areas which have less recreational amenities, less facilities, higher population density, more intergenerational living in small quarters, use public transit, unable to work from home, have to work in congregate settings. Those are all features which are social determinants features. But within those social determinants, as well as outside of the social determinants, Black people have to deal with systemic racism in daily life, which makes them susceptible to chronic conditions in a way that is difficult to appreciate. But the way I try to explain it is to point out that whether it's diabetes, asthma, heart disease, high blood pressure, the rates, the prevalence is significantly different in our African homeland than it is in the Caribbean, in any country in the Americas, whether it's Brazil, United States, or Canada. In Africa, for instance, diabetes prevalence is about 3.1%. In the Caribbean, it's 9%. And that 9% translates into 14% of adult deaths in the Caribbean. In America, and probably in Canada too, I'm not sure about Canada, but in the United States, it's about 11% prevalence for Black people versus about 7% for white people. And what that translates into is death, and we don't have a genetic susceptibility to diabetes. Diabetes is a condition that we experience because of the social determinants of health, but also because we have to live with racism, and racism wears us down biologically.
So what you said is so important, and it speaks to why it is that vaccine equity is very important. And so what is the Black Scientist Task Force on Vaccination Equity doing what is vaccine equity, first of all, and what is the task force doing to promote vaccine equity?
Yeah, so vaccine equity is fair and immediate access to vaccines based on risk, right? If you're high risk of getting COVID and getting severe COVID, being hospitalized and dying from COVID, the idea is you should be first in line or second in line for the vaccine. The same way people who are elderly living in long-term care facilities should be first in line because they are so higher risk. Black people who are living in these social determinant conditions which place them at risk, who have experienced systemic racism in their lives, which place them at risk, need to be a priority for vaccination, regardless of vaccine hesitancy or not. They are at greater risk of dying, and the data bears that out. Black people die at an approximate rate of 32 per 100,000 versus 16 per 100,000 for whites. That means that we die from COVID at twice the rate of our fellow white citizens, which is an incredible figure, given that we have one of the best healthcare systems in the world. Why is that? How can we address that? Well, one of the means is through education. We have to educate ourselves and our fellow citizens that these conditions are intolerable. They have led to incredible disparities in sickness and in death. And we need to make sure that we don't go forward with them, that we actually change our circumstances so that we can live well, live better. Because we know how to live well. Our culture teaches us how to live well. We just don't have the social determinants to live well.
That is so important. Well, as you can see, I'm wearing a t-shirt that says Vaccinate for the Culture. And Vaccinate for the Culture campaign is encouraging COVID-19 vaccination as a measure to promote Black health, Black lives, Black love, Black joy, and Black culture. Can you speak to this message?
Oh yeah, I can speak to it very well. I want to say, Black culture is at its heart expressed in song, in dance, in the way we celebrate life. I mean, in the way we laugh at life. One of the reasons I love traveling through the Caribbean and Africa and South America is you're laughing all the time. You're laughing all the time. The music is there. You're hearing the music. You're laughing all the time. You're so much more alive, and the culture is so vibrant. COVID has been Black death, Black illness, Black mortality, Black suffering, Black pain, Black cultural implosion of an unprecedented scope and magnitude. And when I say Black death, I'm not using the Eurocentric framing of the Black death of medieval Europe. I'm talking about the death of Black icons who are encyclopedias for Black culture, as well as Black joy, health, and happiness. And whether it's Manu Dibango, Soul Mama Kosa, Mama Ko Mama Sa, Mama Makosa, Jacob Desferrier, the founder of the band Kassav in the Caribbean, an incredible band, incredible music, so popular in Africa that people would hardly believe that this is a Caribbean band. In Brazil, we lost the founder of one of the schools of samba, Nelson Sargento. I mean, you don't even know who he is. Many people don't know who he is. But we have Black people across the Western Hemisphere who are foundations for our cultural life, who have passed away because of COVID. And their passing away is both a real loss in terms of their lives and what we've lost, because truth be told, most of the histories, most of their life stories haven't been captured. We lost Margaret, a young, the Calypsonian crazy sister in Trinidad. Here in Toronto, she died of COVID in Toronto. A founder of Caribana. I'm sure her story has yet to be told in terms of how Caribana was created, the bacchanal around that, how it evolved and survived and went through all of the various stages it went through. So these individual lives of cultural icons reflect a greater, graver loss. They are harbingers of the gravity of what COVID means for Black people in the 21st century. We have never experienced such a loss, and we don't even know the loss, because we don't have race-based data in many of these countries that really speak to, where's the Black world in 2021 versus where it was in 2015. But I'm telling you, COVID is death. Vaccines is a way of preventing death. That's why these vaccines are so important. And that's why the misinformation, the myths, the lies, the distortions, the omissions are just not just terrible, offensive, because Black people's lives are being lost much more so than many other groups. You have to edit that.
No, and thank you so much for reminding our audience that COVID vaccination is important not just for Toronto, but for Canada and for the entire African diaspora, because our culture spans continents, not
That's
just
right.
this country. And that's important.
And that's a point that you asked me what we're doing with public education and advocacy. And one of the points of advocacy is that we need to be sharing vaccines as a country with Canada, with the Caribbean and with African countries generously. And generously means we don't just share vaccines that have a expiry date of next week. So we don't have nothing to do with them, like AstraZeneca. Nobody wants AstraZeneca, so they're going to expire in a week. So we send them abroad. We need to share vaccines now for people who are at risk, health professionals who are at high risk, like our own health professionals, like our own seniors. and save. Before we talk about third dose, boosted doses for people who are not at high risk, we need to be sharing vaccines.
We're listening to Akwatu Kente, Assistant Professor of the Dalla Lana School of Public Health at the University of Toronto and Chair of the Black Scientist Task Force on Vaccine Equity. Thank you so much, Akwatu, for those words.
My pleasure. Take care. Have a wonderful day.